God says, "My child, the doors of heaven will be closed soon, open right now, not because a specific deadline exists in some literal, cosmic sense, but because the particular window of readiness and openness you are currently experiencing, the very willingness that led you to open this message today, tends not to remain equally accessible indefinitely if left unattended and unacted upon." Stay with this message. Something in you opened this today, past countless other pieces of content you might have scrolled past without a second thought. This message exists to honor that particular openness, offering honest reflection rather than vague, dramatic promise disconnected from your actual, lived circumstances. Breathe slowly. Let your body settle into stillness. Whatever has filled your attention recently, set it aside for these next several minutes, because what follows deserves genuine presence rather than the passing, distracted engagement most content receives during an ordinary day. This particular door being described is not a literal, physical gate somewhere beyond ordinary perception. It represents something more immediate and practical, the specific window of genuine readiness you are currently experiencing, a readiness that led you to pause, to open this message, to give it your genuine attention rather than continuing to scroll past it the way you likely scroll past countless similar pieces of content throughout an ordinary day. Reflect honestly on what specifically drew you to open this message today, rather than simply continuing past it without a second thought. Perhaps a persistent restlessness that has been present recently. Perhaps a specific difficulty or decision that has been weighing on you. Perhaps simply a general sense that something in your life currently requires more honest attention than it has been receiving. Whatever specifically drew you here, this message is asking you to honor that particular pull rather than allowing it to fade back into the ordinary distraction of daily life once this reflection ends. Give yourself genuine time with this question rather than moving quickly past it toward whatever follows. Sometimes the specific reason you pause today is not immediately obvious, requiring a bit more honest reflection before it becomes clear. Trust whatever genuinely surfaces, even if it feels less dramatic or obvious than you initially expected it might. Genuine readiness of this kind, the willingness to pause, reflect, and consider making a change, does not remain equally accessible indefinitely without corresponding action. It tends to fluctuate, sometimes present strongly, sometimes fading into the background as ordinary daily demands and distractions reclaim your attention. This is precisely why this message emphasizes urgency, not because some external deadline exists, but because the internal readiness currently present within you represents a genuine, if temporary, opportunity worth honoring while it remains accessible. Think of this readiness almost like a specific quality of light that appears briefly during certain moments of the day, present and workable for a limited window before shifting into something different. A photographer who recognizes this particular quality of light knows to act while it remains available, rather than assuming it will simply persist unchanged indefinitely. Your own current readiness functions similarly, present now, in this particular moment, in a form that may not remain identically accessible once ordinary daily life reclaims your attention. Consider what specifically has been asking for your attention recently, the matter this particular sense of readiness likely connects to most directly. Perhaps a relationship requiring honest attention. Perhaps a decision that has remained unresolved for longer than genuinely necessary. Perhaps a piece of healing or self-examination that has been approached only partially, tentatively, never quite receiving the full engagement it genuinely deserves. Whatever specific matter arose as you considered this question, hold it clearly in mind as you continue through this reflection. Give yourself genuine time here, allowing whatever specifically arises to become clear rather than settling immediately for a vague, general impression. Sometimes multiple matters compete for attention simultaneously, and identifying which one feels most connected to today's particular sense of readiness can help focus your energy more effectively than attempting to address everything at once. Why this particular window of readiness matters, rather than assuming any moment of reflection carries equal significance regardless of timing, deserves honest consideration. Human motivation and openness fluctuate naturally, shaped by mood, circumstance, and countless other factors that are not always fully within conscious control. The specific combination of factors that brought you to this moment of genuine openness, whatever they happen to be, will not necessarily remain present in exactly this configuration indefinitely. This does not mean the specific matter you have identified becomes permanently unaddressable if not engaged with immediately. It simply means the particular ease of engagement you currently have access to, this specific window where genuine reflection and willingness feel more accessible than usual, deserves being honored while it remains present, rather than assuming it will simply persist unchanged regardless of how long you continue postponing genuine engagement. Consider what it would mean to distinguish, honestly, between permanent unavailability and simply reduced ease of access. The matter itself will likely still exist tomorrow, next week, next month, whether or not you engage with it today. But your current capacity to engage with it easily, from this particular place of genuine openness and reflection, is precisely what feels less guaranteed to persist unchanged, making today's specific opportunity worth taking seriously even though the underlying matter itself is not literally disappearing forever. The specific fear that likely underlies whatever hesitation you feel regarding this particular matter deserves examination rather than continued, silent operation in the background of your ongoing avoidance. Fear of the specific outcome itself, worrying that genuine engagement will produce a result you do not want. Fear of the process itself, the discomfort genuine engagement typically requires. Fear of what genuine engagement might require you to subsequently change, recognizing that authentic response to this particular matter may ripple outward into other areas of your life. Reflect honestly on which of these fears, or what combination, feels most relevant to your own particular situation. Naming this fear clearly, rather than experiencing it only as vague, undifferentiated resistance, tends to make it significantly more workable, allowing genuine examination rather than simply continuing to be controlled by its diffuse presence. Try, if you are genuinely willing, to complete the sentence, "Part of me is hesitant because," and allow whatever honest answer arises. This kind of direct, specific naming often reveals more than continuing to relate to your hesitation only as a vague, general feeling of resistance without ever actually identifying its specific underlying content and origin. Ask yourself, honestly, how likely the specific feared outcome actually is, based on genuine evidence rather than anxious imagination generating worst-case scenarios without adequate grounding in actual probability or precedent from your own life experience. Ask yourself, too, whether you would genuinely be unable to handle this feared outcome even if it did occur, given everything you have already survived and handled throughout your life up to this point. Most people, examining this question honestly rather than simply accepting their anxious assumption without genuine scrutiny, discover they possess significantly more resilience and capability than their fear typically credits them with. Evidence drawn directly from their own accumulated life experience rather than theoretical reassurance offered without genuine grounding in personal history and demonstrated capability. Consider making a brief, honest inventory of specific past difficulties you have already successfully navigated, situations that, at the time, may have felt genuinely overwhelming or uncertain, yet which you ultimately found a way through. This inventory, however brief, often provides concrete, personally relevant evidence that directly contradicts whatever anxious narrative currently suggests you would be fundamentally unable to handle whatever specific outcome you fear regarding this current matter. What genuine engagement with this particular matter might actually look like in practical terms deserves direct consideration, since this message is not suggesting reckless, impulsive action taken without any genuine thought or consideration. Genuine engagement involves honest reflection followed by concrete, deliberate action, translating whatever clarity has emerged through this reflection into actual, practical engagement with your real circumstances. If your identified matter involves a relationship, genuine engagement might mean having an honest conversation, clearly communicating your genuine feelings rather than continuing ambiguous interaction. If your identified matter involves a decision, genuine engagement might mean actually making that decision within the next day, rather than continuing to circle around it indefinitely. If your identified matter involves healing or self-examination, genuine engagement might mean actually sitting with whatever difficult material has been avoided, or scheduling appropriate professional support if that feels relevant to your particular circumstances. Whatever specific form this genuine engagement ultimately takes for your own particular situation, notice that it does not need to represent the complete, final resolution in order to matter significantly. A single honest conversation, a single decisive choice, a single moment of genuine, direct engagement with difficult material, each of these represents real movement, evidence that today's genuine readiness actually translated into something concrete rather than remaining purely theoretical. Why immediate action matters specifically at this particular moment, rather than continuing to treat this particular readiness as something that will simply remain equally available indefinitely, deserves honest reflection as well. Moments of genuine clarity and motivation, like whatever clarity may be emerging for you through this particular reflection, do not typically remain equally accessible and vivid indefinitely. Ordinary daily life has a consistent tendency to reclaim attention, gradually diminishing the vividness and motivational force of even genuinely significant insights and realizations. Consider what specific action you can take within the next day, not the next week or month, but the next day, that would represent genuine movement toward whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify. This does not need to be the complete resolution. It simply needs to be real, concrete evidence that this particular moment of clarity actually translated into meaningful action. Think about what specifically would make this action feel achievable rather than intimidating, breaking it down further if necessary until it feels genuinely manageable within the actual constraints of your day tomorrow. Sometimes what initially feels like one large step is actually several smaller steps combined, and identifying the smallest possible starting point can make the difference between genuine follow-through and continued postponement disguised as waiting for more ideal circumstances. Support during this process, since translating genuine internal clarity into concrete external action often proves easier with appropriate support rather than attempted entirely in isolation, deserves genuine consideration as well. Consider who in your life might serve as a valuable source of encouragement as you begin genuinely engaging with whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify. If professional support feels relevant to your specific matter, whether therapeutic support for healing work, career coaching for professional matters, or other appropriate professional resources, consider this a legitimate and valuable part of genuine engagement, rather than viewing it as somehow separate from or less significant than purely personal effort and determination alone. Doubt likely has arisen at some point during this reflection, questioning whether this message's central claim genuinely applies to your own specific situation, or whether it simply represents generic spiritual encouragement offered broadly without genuine connection to your actual, particular circumstances. This doubt deserves honest acknowledgement rather than automatic dismissal. though it also deserves genuine examination rather than uncritical acceptance as necessarily representing the complete truth of the matter. Consider whether your own doubt reflects genuine, careful evaluation concluding that no significant matter genuinely applies to your current circumstances, or whether it reflects something else, perhaps the very avoidance pattern this message has been describing throughout, manifesting specifically as skepticism toward the message itself rather than genuine, honest engagement with whatever matter might actually be relevant to your particular life. Genuine urgency does not require certainty about exactly how everything will unfold once you begin engaging directly. It simply requires sufficient clarity about the genuine significance of this particular matter, and sufficient willingness to begin moving forward despite remaining uncertainty about specific details and eventual outcomes. Consider what it would mean to hold both genuine uncertainty about outcomes and genuine commitment to beginning the process simultaneously, rather than requiring complete certainty before allowing yourself to take even the first, smallest step forward. Most genuinely significant undertakings begin this way, with real uncertainty about eventual outcomes accompanying genuine commitment to beginning the process regardless of that uncertainty. The specific language you might use internally as you approach this particular moment of decision deserves attention as well, since internal language shapes experience and subsequent action significantly more than most people initially recognize. If your internal language currently frames this moment primarily through fear, emphasizing everything that could go wrong, consider whether shifting toward more balanced language, acknowledging genuine risk alongside genuine potential benefit, might actually better reflect the honest reality of your particular situation. What genuinely changes once you have finally begun engaging with this particular matter, translating readiness into concrete action rather than continuing the pattern of postponement that has likely characterized your relationship with this particular matter until now, extends well beyond simply feeling pleasant in any single given moment. Many people report significant relief following genuine engagement, even when that engagement involves real, ongoing challenges and difficulties that do not immediately and completely resolve simply through the act of beginning. This relief stems not from the absence of difficulty, but from the absence of the particular exhaustion that prolonged avoidance and postponement typically produces, mental and emotional energy previously consumed by continued deliberation and avoidance becoming available instead for the different, often more manageable work of actually engaging with whatever genuine challenges this particular matter involves once directly and honestly addressed. The specific relationship between readiness and genuine action deserves careful consideration as well, since many people wait indefinitely for a feeling of complete certainty before beginning something significant, a feeling that, for most genuinely worthwhile undertakings, never actually arrives in the complete, certain form that continued waiting seems to be anticipating. Genuine readiness, more often, develops through the very process of beginning, rather than existing as a prerequisite that must be fully achieved before beginning becomes possible or appropriate. Consider whether you have been waiting for this kind of complete certainty regarding whatever matter this reflection has helped you identify, a certainty that may simply not arrive in the form you have been anticipating until after you have actually begun engaging directly with the matter itself. If this pattern resonates with your own particular experience, this message is specifically asking you to release the requirement of complete certainty before beginning, trusting instead that sufficient readiness for the next immediate step is likely already present. A final significant consideration remains before this message moves toward its close. This urgency, however direct this particular message's tone has become, has not arisen because something is wrong with you, or because you have somehow failed by not yet acting until this current moment. This urgency simply reflects genuine care, a recognition that the particular window of readiness you are currently experiencing represents a genuine opportunity worth honoring while it remains accessible. Release whatever shame or self-criticism might have accumulated regarding your previous postponement of this particular matter. Shame does not accelerate genuine engagement. It simply adds unnecessary additional weight on top of whatever difficulty already exists in facing this matter directly. Approach this moment instead with genuine self-compassion, recognizing that postponement in the face of significant, meaningful matters is an extremely common human pattern, alongside genuine readiness to finally respond differently than you have responded to similar previous opportunities. The specific role that self-trust plays throughout this entire process deserves consideration as well, since genuine, timely action ultimately requires trusting your own capacity to navigate whatever unfolds once that action has actually been taken. Many people, when caught in extended postponement regarding significant matters, are actually struggling less with uncertainty about what they want, and more with uncertainty about their own capability to handle the consequences and responsibilities that genuine action inevitably brings. Reflect honestly on whether this describes your own particular situation, whether the primary obstacle preventing genuine action has been uncertainty about what you actually want, or uncertainty about your own capacity to handle whatever that action genuinely requires once undertaken. If self-trust specifically feels like the more significant obstacle, consider what evidence from your own past experience might genuinely support greater confidence in your own capability. The specific role your current physical and emotional well-being plays in your capacity for genuine, timely engagement deserves attention as well, since chronic exhaustion, unaddressed stress, or significant ongoing emotional difficulty genuinely limits available capacity for the kind of courageous, sustained action this particular matter likely requires. If your own well-being has been significantly neglected recently, consider whether some attention to rest, basic self-care, and emotional support might actually represent an important part of genuinely preparing yourself for the more direct engagement this message has been encouraging throughout it. Content. What specific systems you might build to support consistent, ongoing action, rather than relying purely on the initial burst of motivation this reflection has hopefully provided, motivation that, like most initial bursts of enthusiasm, will likely fade over time regardless of how genuinely significant this particular matter remains, deserves genuine consideration. Consider what specific structure, whether a regular check-in, an accountability partner, or a simple, consistent daily practice, might help sustain your engagement well beyond this single moment of initial clarity and commitment. Consider the specific role that your current environment plays in either supporting or undermining your capacity for timely action, since environment shapes behavior considerably more than most people initially recognize. If your current social circle normalizes patterns of extended postponement and hesitation, this environmental influence deserves honest consideration as you continue developing your own particular approach toward genuine, timely engagement. Reflect on what specific relationships in your life might genuinely benefit from knowing about your renewed commitment to this particular matter, people whose knowledge of your commitment might itself provide additional, valuable accountability supporting your continued follow-through over the coming weeks. This does not require sharing every detail with everyone in your life. It simply invites consideration of whether broader, appropriate transparency about your genuine commitment might serve your continued engagement more effectively. Examine, too, what specific obstacles from your own particular history have most consistently derailed previous attempts at similar significant engagement, whether related to this specific matter or to other significant matters you have faced throughout your life. Perhaps a pattern of losing motivation once initial difficulty arises. Perhaps a pattern of becoming overwhelmed by attempting too much too quickly. Whatever specific pattern has most consistently interfered with your previous attempts, name it clearly now, and consider what specific strategy might help you navigate around this particular pattern more effectively this time. Consider what genuine celebration might look like once you have taken that first concrete step. This message has been encouraging throughout its content, recognizing that acknowledging genuine progress, however small, tends to reinforce continued engagement far more effectively than moving immediately toward the next challenge without ever genuinely registering what has already been accomplished. Before this message reaches its true close, take one final moment for yourself, genuinely absorbing what has emerged throughout this reflection rather than rushing immediately toward whatever comes next in your day. Name, specifically, what matter this message has actually been pointing toward in your own particular life. Name, specifically, the concrete action you intend to take within the next day, moving this matter from the category of things perpetually postponed into the category of things actively, genuinely being addressed. This does not need to feel dramatic or overwhelming in order to matter significantly. It simply needs to feel genuine, real engagement rather than another moment of temporary reflection quickly forgotten once this message ends and your attention naturally returns to whatever else occupies your ordinary day. Trust that this particular message reached you today for a genuine reason, connecting specifically to something already present and waiting within your own awareness, rather than arriving randomly or without relevance to your actual life circumstances. Something in you recognized enough significance to continue reading this far, past the point where you might have closed this message earlier had it genuinely carried no connection to anything significant currently present in your own life. Consider, too, what it might mean to continue checking in with yourself over the coming days regarding whatever action you have begun today, recognizing that genuine follow-through often requires sustained engagement beyond this single initial moment of reflection and commitment. Perhaps setting aside a few minutes each day, or each week, to honestly assess whether you are continuing to move forward with whatever process this reflection has helped you begin. How you will handle the inevitable moments of doubt or difficulty that are likely to arise as you continue this process beyond today, moments when the clarity you feel right now begins to feel more distant or uncertain amid the ordinary demands and complications of daily life, deserves genuine reflection as well. These moments of doubt do not indicate that your original clarity was somehow mistaken. They simply reflect the natural fluctuation that accompanies any genuine process of significant engagement and change. When these moments of doubt eventually arise, consider returning to this specific reflection, rereading whatever sections felt most significant during this initial encounter, allowing the content to reinforce your original commitment even as its initial emotional intensity has naturally softened somewhat with the passage of time. Consider, too, reaching out to whatever support person you have identified, sharing the specific doubt currently being experienced rather than allowing it to operate silently. What specific obstacles are most likely to arise as you continue translating today's recognition into sustained action over the coming weeks, obstacles worth anticipating now rather than being caught entirely unprepared when they eventually arise, deserves consideration as well. Practical complications that make continued follow-through more difficult than it seemed during this initial moment of clarity. Old patterns of avoidance attempting to reassert themselves, particularly once the immediate emotional impact of this message begins to fade. What genuine progress will actually look like over the coming weeks deserves thoughtful reflection as well, recognizing that most significant matters worth genuinely addressing rarely resolve completely within a single conversation or action. Progress more often looks like continued, honest engagement over time, gradual movement toward genuine resolution, even if that resolution takes considerably longer to fully develop than you might initially hope. Consider, too, what specific record you might keep as you continue this process beyond today, some form of documentation that allows you to track genuine progress over time rather than relying purely on memory to preserve the clarity and commitment you feel right now. This does not need to be elaborate. A simple note, written somewhere you will actually encounter again, briefly describing what this matter has been about and the action you intend to take, can serve as valuable evidence later. Consider, finally, what it would mean to trust that this particular sense of urgency, whatever specific form it has taken in reaching you today, arrives out of genuine care rather than any arbitrary or coercive intention. This message is not trying to frighten you into hasty, poorly considered action. It is simply offering honest encouragement to honor a genuine window of readiness while it remains accessible, inviting you toward the genuine freedom and fulfillment that comes from finally engaging with what has been waiting patiently for your attention. There is one more layer worth adding before this message truly comes to its close, something practical that ties everything shared today into sustained, meaningful engagement over the coming weeks and months ahead, ensuring this genuine readiness actually produces the lasting response it deserves rather than becoming simply one more instance of temporary motivation quickly forgotten. Consider what specific daily practice might help you maintain connection to whatever clarity has emerged through this particular reflection, something brief enough to sustain consistently rather than elaborate enough to likely be abandoned once initial motivation naturally diminishes over time. Perhaps a few minutes each morning, briefly recommitting to whatever action you have identified as your genuine response to this message. Reflect on what specific evidence of genuine progress you might reasonably look for over the coming weeks, evidence that would help confirm authentic movement is actually occurring, even when that movement unfolds gradually rather than through one single, dramatic moment of complete resolution. Perhaps a growing sense of lightness or relief connected to whatever matter you have begun addressing. Perhaps concrete developments in whatever specific action you identified as your initial step forward. Consider, too, what specific role reflection and reassessment might play as this process continues unfolding beyond today. Genuine engagement with significant matters rarely proceeds in a perfectly smooth, predictable line from initial recognition through complete resolution. It typically involves periods of clear progress alongside periods where the path forward becomes temporarily less obvious, requiring renewed reflection and, sometimes, genuine reconsideration of the specific approach being taken. Give yourself genuine permission for this kind of ongoing reassessment, distinguishing it clearly from the pattern of postponement and avoidance this message has been addressing throughout its content. Reassessment, engaged in honestly while maintaining consistent underlying commitment, represents healthy, adaptive engagement with a genuinely complex matter. Explore what your particular relationship with this matter might look like 1 year from today, looking forward with genuine intention rather than simply hoping passively that circumstances will somehow resolve themselves without your continued, active participation. Picture, as specifically as you genuinely can, having engaged consistently and honestly with whatever this message has helped you identify, noticing what that engagement has likely produced by that point. Consider what specific people in your life, beyond simply the one supportive individual already discussed earlier in this reflection, might benefit from knowing about your genuine commitment to this particular matter. This does not require sharing every detail with everyone in your life. It simply invites consideration of whether broader, appropriate transparency about your genuine commitment might serve your continued engagement more effectively than continuing to hold this process entirely privately. Reflect, too, on what specific fears or hesitations from your own particular history have most consistently prevented similar significant engagement in the past, whether related to this specific matter or to other significant aspirations you have considered throughout your life. Whatever specific pattern has most consistently interfered with your previous attempts at significant pursuit, Name it clearly now, and consider what specific strategy might help you navigate around this particular pattern more effectively this time. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today, for opening this door rather than allowing it to pass by unopened like similar previous moments may have passed by before. Be gentle with yourself as you continue engaging with whatever has been waiting for your attention, one honest, deliberate step at a time.